Thank you so much for that kind introduction. It's a pleasure. I wish I were back in Oman, but it's a pleasure to join you, at least virtually for the time being. Um, Thank you for the kind introduction. There's not much I need to say really, but there's the book which you just mentioned. It's a year of investing and trying to stay ahead. And I think that's one of my main messages to you all this morning, is to not be frightened of these new technologies, to put yourself out of your comfort zone and to pivot. Pivot really is one of the key words during lockdown, certainly here in the UK, but to get comfortable and to consider the impact of AI on you socially, but also in your business. I wish I were in Oman at the moment. I had great pleasure to visit the country a few times, along with Bahrain and Dubai and a few other parts of the Middle East. So it would be nice to be there with you face to face, but at least technology means that we can all join in this way. So I'm talking about harnessing AI and ethically, but I think it's important to begin by just making sure everybody understands what we mean by artificial intelligence. Really, in a nutshell, we're talking about the capability of a machine to imitate human intelligent behavior. And we've got machine learning, which is a subset of that. It's about pattern recognition, an algorithm being a set of computer instructions, but this is enabling machines to accelerate their learning through experience. But ultimately, it's big data. It's big data insights that can help you to automate your marketing, your human resources, your finance, and many other things. So let's take all the mystery away. It's like the cloud-based tools that we've been using for 10 years or so. And if we jump forward 5 years, we'll look back and say, what was all the big fuss about? And so you have here all the different elements of AI, interactive AI with chatbots through to speech recognition, things like Siri and Cortana, also computer vision, which is used in the driverless vehicles. So you've got this family of technologies under the banner of artificial intelligence. I want to spend 10, 15 minutes maximum talking to you about how you can gain competitive advantage with AI, but doing so in a very ethical manner. And so with this chart here, we've got two main benefits of using AI and machine learning in your sales and marketing. On the left-hand side, the different impacts in terms of cost reduction, and on the right-hand side, revenue increases across all different business functions in an organization, from marketing and sales through to manufacturing. This really is from McKinsey, and it's looking down the left-hand side, different industry sectors, and across the top, how they are adopting AI. So let's take telecoms as a good example. British Telecom, one of the brands featured in my book, which actually covers all different parts of the world and different industry sectors. Service operations is the first column. So they know that in the UK, the weather starts to get bad in November, for example. It gets cold, broadband lines are affected. They can look at historical data and they can predict weather patterns, and they can have their engineers scheduled and ready to go out and do the repairs. So it's scheduling and it's customer experience, because it's about looking after the customer. If we drop down to retail and then move across to marketing and sales, which is one of the biggest business functions in retail for AI, we're really talking about the ability to customize and to do marketing at scale with millions of customers of a brand like TGI Fridays. And so it's a paradox where you're thinking it's not human and therefore it's depersonalized, but actually it's the opposite. Big data insights mean that we can get closer to the customer and give them what they want, price it accordingly, and that's one of the main benefits of AI. So here's an example here. So TGI Fridays, Chief Experience Officer, I interviewed him for my book. That's a job title we weren't aware of a few years back. It's a newish title. But he's saying here that I can pull all of this disparate data together that comes in from point of sale, social media, and I can give these 4 million guests who've given us their consent, that's really important, and we can give them this very personalized experience. And they use a tool called Amperity to actually achieve that. Another example in the fintech, the financial sector, financial services sector, you've got this company here who's developed an AI virtual assistant, and it's about people being able to understand their credit card debt, their student loans, and to help make them financially healthy. So it runs diagnostics on the customers, manages how they spend their money, does their bills, and tracks. So it's really about smart. So smart personalized medicine, personalized marketing, personalized finance. That's really what we're moving to. Forget scary robots replacing my jobs. This is really about the automation of many different tasks, across the different functions that we're involved in. So here's another fintech, and it's doing scoring of fraud so that it can attempt when a fraud is going to take place. And you've got organizations like American Express and Singapore banks who are using these kinds of bots for customer service as well. So all different examples of how AI is being used. Financial services here, we've got the elimination potentially of bias, where you've got people perhaps of color who are on the receiving end of prejudice. And so you've got the AI's ability to reduce that bias in financial services. So that's really important as well. I want to speak for a few minutes now about how we need to use AI in a very ethical manner. So in the UK, in Europe, we have the general data, the GDPR. So this is all about explainability. And there is a clause in GDPR which talks about explainability. Let me give you an example with the insurance sector. If the big black box of AI is making decisions and saying that person can't have a mortgage, that person can't have the car, a loan for a car or insurance because they are this postcode and this color and this age group, the person handling that inquiry needs to know why that decision has been reached. And so we're trying to put in regulation and guidance in order to stop there being decisions made by this kind of AI that might reach conclusions that are wrong. So it's really important to have the balance between explainability, but also accuracy, security, commercial secrecy, and so on. So it's a very complex area because the law hasn't really fully caught up with how advanced the technology is. I find this very reassuring because this is a global partnership announced in June of this year, where OECD countries like India, the UK, New Zealand have come together, and they are trying to ensure that AI is consistent with human rights, with financial freedoms, with fundamental freedoms, shared democratic values. So this is a new global partnership to try and ensure. So from an ethical point of view, I thought that would be, really relevant to discuss with you. I want to have my last few slides really dedicated to helping you think about how you get started. So if what I've said about AI usage in marketing and sales or in HR or in supply chain is of interest to you, and it should be, because most countries and most industry sectors are starting to take advantage of it, where do you start? What's that start point look like? And so I'm sharing with you now. I call this my scorecard for success. So it features in the book, and it's me distilling all of my learnings and all of the case studies from the book into this scorecard. And what you do is you give yourself a score of 0 to 5 across all of the 10 areas I've got here. I don't have time to go through all of them, but let me give you a few. You need to have the right management buy-in and the right mindset for change. But you don't just jump on the bandwagon and deploy AI and have huge expenses. You do experimentation, proofs of concept. Number 3, you do a business case. You collaborate, number 5, with other people in the organization, maybe with academia. Perhaps you get some funding. Number 6, you have to have talent. You have to either outsource it, reskill the existing team, buy in some services. All of this affects your culture. So it's really important that, again, you know how to communicate with your staff, because one of the banks in my book, from Saxo Bank, they deployed some of the chatbots too early. Staff were frightened and didn't get the sort of what's in it for me. And actually, it was quite gimmicky, and clients interacted initially and then found that it was very shallow and not able to really do what it needed to do. And so actually, you've got to keep innovating, but you've got to have that culture of communication and understanding all of your different stakeholders. Number 9, we just talked about briefly. And as I was introduced, I'm on the all-party parliamentary group for the adoption of AI in enterprise ethics. AI for good. There's some great examples of projects all around the world with young people. I did my own one recently with schools. It's really important that we understand that the educational curriculum needs to change to prepare people for the future, and that AI mustn't, really end up with a world of haves and have-nots. But ultimately, as a business, as an organization, you need a roadmap. You need to understand how AI is going to impact you. So you give yourself a score of 0 to 50. You're either traditional, somewhere in the middle where you're transitioning, or you are transformational and you're really starting to get to grips and understand how you can use AI. And many of the CEOs and organizations I work with really are at that very early stage. So I'm not sitting here today and pretending that it's there already. It's not being deployed at scale across organizations, really, in many places, but it is being used in retail and financial services in some sectors, in some parts of the world as well. So I'm coming to the end of my presentation. Always like to leave you with a little present. There's a discount code if anyone is interested in the book. Any academics or any press can always contact me if they want to get a free e-copy of the book as well. So, as I say, I want you to leave you with that message that I started with, is that we're in a really different world right now. The pandemic is changing business and the world of work. Technologies, fourth generation technologies like AI and machine learning and blockchain and others, are also disrupting society and business. But we can't hold back progress. We've had steam, electrification, the era of the internet. This is the next wave of automation. So don't be frightened of it. Learn. There are free courses available on, for example, the University of Helsinki runs an incredible free course on AI for people. So get up to speed, learn about it, don't be frightened, be curious. And that's really what I wanted to leave you with. So, a final thank you for having me here again today. I hope next year I get to come back to your lovely country, and thank you for having me.